Welcome to the Triathlon Nutrition Academy podcast, the show designed to serve you up evidence-based sports nutrition advice from the experts. Hi, I'm your host Taryn, accredited practicing dietitian, advanced sports dietitian, and founder of Dietitian Approved. Listen as I break down the latest evidence to give you practical, easy-to-digest strategies to train hard, recover faster, and perform at your best. You have so much potential, and I want to help you unlock that with the power of nutrition. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Triathlon Nutrition Academy podcast, hosted normally by Taryn, but today Stef Hansen is hosting it because we're turning the tables, flipping the script, and I am interviewing the woman behind Triathlon Nutrition Academy. So welcome to your own podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
We're buddies from way back. We've been in the sport of triathlon for quite a few years. And, you know, I love a chat. So I figured that's why you asked me to do this. But I think I've got a unique insight into how you go about things. And this is 1 year since you launched your podcast. So we're going to delve into that a little bit and start with why podcasting? Why did you think that was a good platform to, I guess, educate people out there?
Yeah, good question. And I ask myself that all the time because podcasting is not the easiest thing in the world. But I guess I really want to reach more people and reach more ears, and podcasting is definitely the way to do that at the moment. I am really passionate about spreading the message of endurance sports nutrition from the evidence side of things. Like, you need to understand how you do the things with nutrition to actually be a good triathlete. And I've been, chipping away in my own little corner here down under in Australia. I go live occasionally on Insta, on Facebook. I've had an email list for many years, and I've done a lot of one-on-one private consulting. And yeah, there's traction, but podcasting is definitely the way to reach more people because there's no barrier to listening. So I knew that it was one of the steps in my journey to spread that message wider because I'm so passionate about elevating sports dietitians as the experts in this space. And hey, I don't want to be in the limelight.
I've seen you in action. Not wanting to grab the microphone, but having to do it.
Yeah. If you know me, you'll know that about me. I don't actually want to be famous. I don't like having the limelight. I don't like having social media profiles, but I know that people won't understand nutrition properly from the right people if I don't get out of my comfort zone and do that. And I knew that podcasting was a really great platform to do that. And over the last year, it has exploded. So I know that it's working, which helps to drive me to continue doing it.
So you've touched on quite a few things then, and one thing that really stood out to me, and we've sort of discussed this quite a bit, you're coming at it from a science base, from a lot of education, from a lot of background. How do you stand out in the crowd compared to old mate who can pick up a microphone and start podcasting and start spouting whatever they want and people listen? How do you break through all that noise and nonsense?
I battle with that on a daily basis. I've done 6 years of university level study in nutrition. I'm not just somebody that's done a 6-week online course and calls themselves a nutritionist. A lot of people don't understand the difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian. And that was the first podcast episode I recorded actually over a year ago, was explaining that difference, particularly here in Australia, where the term nutritionist is not a regulated term. So Steph, you could call yourself a nutritionist if you wanted to.
If you saw my fridge, that would be a no. But yes, I understand what you mean.
I've got the education behind me, I guess, and I've just had to get out of my comfort zone to be comfortable getting on a microphone and talking about the knowledge that I have. But I guess I also come at triathlon from the perspective of being a triathlete myself, pre-kids, haven't done anything for the last couple of years because, Jesus Christ, I have a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old and there ain't no time for anything, let alone triathlon training. I've got to keep up with a podcast every week, so I can't swim, bike and run and do a podcast every week. So I've got the experience in the sport myself for many years, and for more than 6 years, I was the sports dietitian for Triathlon Australia as well. So I looked after our Australian elite triathlon team, which was such a cool job. Definitely one of the best things I've done in my career. So I guess that's how I stand out from a regular punter that is claiming to be an expert in this space. I think I come from the education side of things, so the qualifications, as well as the personal experience doing triathlon myself. I understand what it's like to train for 3 sports in a week, work full time, juggle all the things. And then that full perspective of working with age group athletes in private practice through my company Dietitian Approved, all the way up to people that are going to Kona, people that are winning Kona. And then the other side of that in the other end is working with the elite team doing sprint and Olympic distance events, but at that top tier level.
Yeah. You've mentioned quite a few times that you're passionate about educating people so that they can make right decisions, not just on race day, but every day of their life. Where do you think that passion comes from?
Oh, so many different areas. I probably can't answer that particularly well because I'm only just learning about that myself. I'm not particularly good at going inside my brain and thinking deeply. I just am full balls to the wall, gas pedal on constantly. I'm really passionate about trying to dispel myths in the nutrition space. My blood boils when I see unqualified people give out nutrition advice. So I'm using podcasting as a platform to be a louder voice and get people to, maybe think differently about the shiny objects and, the next quick fix or thing that they've maybe landed on. Why else am I passionate about that message? That's a big one that drives me, definitely, is just trying to shut up all the people that are unqualified. It's like you wouldn't go to see a physio because you needed nutrition advice, right? Like the number of exercise physiologists I see giving out nutrition plans or personal trainers, that drives me up the wall. I also I'm really passionate about spreading that message because I love seeing people have things click when they get it right and then how much better they feel. I'm definitely a helper. Like I'm in a helping profession. Dietitians are helpers. I love helping people do that, get healthier with food. But I guess as a sports dietitian, I have that next layer on top of that health base is that the performance element that you can get when you've really dialed in nutrition for training.
Is there a really pivotal moment that you remember that it sort of clicked for you, that you were in the right profession, that this is something that you really needed to do for yourself, but obviously educating other people is something that is inside you?
There's not one person. It's been a huge journey of many triathletes over the years that experience that. And that probably just drives me to do more, is that I can see this transformational, life-changing moment for somebody. But I guess my passion is to do that with more and more people. And that's how the Triathlon Nutrition Academy program was born, because I was tapped out with one-on-one consulting. I don't have any more hours in the week to help athletes on a one-to-one basis. So I developed the program to help more athletes in the same amount of time, help them have that clicking moment in their mind that this is working. So there's not one person that stands out. Like I've got crazy stories from over the years from all these weird and wonderful people, but there's not one person that's pivotal. It's just this compounded effect over time, working one-on-one and people having massive changes to the way that they eat for long-term health, but also performance. And I generally work with people for a key event. So it's them going from having no idea what they're doing with their nutrition or having a really bad race. That tends to be when people come in, they have a really shit Ironman and they're like, crap, I need to invest in a dietitian now. And then doing the next one and absolutely smashing it out of the park. So I get really driven and really excited when that happens for somebody. And there's been many, many athletes over the years that have that experience.
I assume podcasting is an opportunity as well to catch people before they make some of those big mistakes. It's similar with a lot of things in endurance sport, physios, strength and conditioning, nutrition always seems to be an afterthought. So it's always fix a problem instead of addressing, things before shit hits the fan type of thing. And I assume that podcasting gives the opportunity to sort of capture an audience that may not be your a specific client or part of an academy just yet, but there's something that will resonate with someone who can then, start to learn from you. And making a big mistake in iron distance racing, for example, is not just not so great on your body, but it's an expensive experiment.
Yep. One of the most expensive sports in the world, triathlon. Not a cheap sport.
No. You managed to get to Kona and you haven't quite got your nutrition right. That's an expensive thing to stuff up if you haven't put the time into getting those things right beforehand.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Like, I assume that if you go to Kona, then you probably want to put a sports dietitian in your corner. But, you know, not everyone can afford it, or they don't think they need it, and they don't quite respect the distance or how hard Kona is. But going back to your original question around trying to help people with those mistakes, I love that I can help people and I don't even need to know who they are necessarily. I released an episode recently around some signs that you might not be eating enough. And I got some feedback from some people from all walks of life that they're like, thank you so much for that episode. I actually think I'm in low energy availability and I'm now going to do something about that. And low energy availability is not something you want to be in for a long term. Like, you want to be in it for a couple of days, not weeks and months. So if I can help people start to think about their nutrition differently and catch those things earlier, then my job is partway done without them having to invest in seeing a dietitian one-on-one or even joining the academy program, which is more cost effective, but it's helping people far and wide across all walks of life. Like, that's pretty cool.
Very cool. And you touched on this very earlier on in our chat as well. You're a mother of two. You've got your own business. Doing triathlon yourself is a bit of a challenge. It's hard to fit it all in. And podcasting once a week is quite intense. It's not just as simple as jumping on and having a chat. There's quite a lot involved in the process, more than anyone will ever know. But do you see the value of speaking directly into people's ears? Are you noticing a difference with people?
Yeah, totally. You are literally in someone's ear. And you're typically in someone's ear for the duration of a podcast, which for me is, you know, around 30 minutes. I don't personally like listening to long podcasts. I actually hate them. Like, if I see something is an hour, I'm like, nah, it's not for me. So my podcasts are short because I know that you will listen through it if it's shorter. But, you know, look at social media or Instagram stories or reels. You've got somebody's attention for like 3 seconds. So podcasting is much more of an intimate relationship for sure. And people feel like they know me in a way too, because you are literally in someone's ear and for a longer period of time than anything Instagram or Facebook or an email or anything like that will have for somebody.
It's so true. But not many people would have even seen your face, know what you look like, but they know what your voice sounds like, which is sounding fantastic, by the way. Your setup is...
Thanks, mate. I actually don't like the sound of my own voice, but I think humans are designed to not like the sound of their own voice, right? You just got to get over that. And I think it's taken me a year to get over to listening to my own voice, but I also don't listen back to my own episodes. They get edited by my amazing media company, Bambi Media. I'll listen to parts if I have to pick up something that needs to be re-edited or to pull out a little snippet, but I try not to listen back. And that's kind of my hack for being able to get up and do this, even though I don't really want to.
And the majority of your episodes are just you speaking with the occasional interview, is that right?
Yeah, majority solo. Try and get lots of experts on, and we'll do in the future to help with the things that I can't do. Like, nutrition is my area of expertise, but that is where it goes. I'm not going to talk about strength and conditioning. I'm not going to talk about psych sort of things. I'm going to get other experts in that's their jam. I'm going to stick in the nutrition lane because that's what I'm good at. So there's a combination of both.
Conversations are a lot easier than just speaking into a mic for 20, 30 minutes.
Oh, totally.
So I applaud you for doing that because that's a really hard gig.
Yeah, I find setting myself up for an episode where it's just me way harder than bouncing off someone, because I don't know if you've noticed, but I'm a total extrovert. I've been stuck at home for the last few years, but I'm a total extrovert and I get energized from people. So if my solo episodes sound like I'm a little bit tired, I probably am, but I'm not getting that energy bounce off from talking to someone else on the other end of the line, because it's really weird to sit in my cupboard by myself.
So explain why you do it in the cupboard. I know, but why do you do it in a cupboard?
We have a Queenslander. So it's a house that has really tall ceilings. They're 3 meters high. There's wooden floors, windows everywhere, and sound just bounces around and sounds disgusting. So I hide in the smallest room in our house. I get the rug from the toy room and I put it underneath me, and I open the cupboard doors so that there's clothes to dampen the sound, to make it sound good in your ear holes, because there's nothing worse than listening to poor quality audio. I'm a total audio snob these days.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, if you go into any kind of podcasting studio, the walls are all softened with whatever they use. It's low ceilings. There's not much hard furniture because it just makes your voice sound tinny and echoey. And like I said before, you sound amazing.
Thank you. That's huge praise coming from you.
I'm actually not in a great space at the moment, but that's because our heater won't turn off. So I have to open all the doors of this house. Otherwise, I might die.
Hey, this is Jill from Texas, USA. I love the TNA podcast because Taryn gives straight, simple, and to-the-point tips on a wide variety of topics. I also love that the entire episode is not one long advertisement for a product like many of the triathlon podcasts tend to do. If you need real triathlon nutrition advice, you can get it on the TNA podcast.
But you know that idea, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day, teach a man to fish, he'll eat for life. I feel like that's what you're doing. You're creating this community of people who, you're not just telling them to go and fish, you're teaching them how to fish.
I mean, this is something that I've kind of recently learnt about you. You're not a fan of grabbing the mic and speaking in front of other people, but for you, it is highly valuable for what you're hoping to achieve in educating the masses, really. So starting the podcast would have been hard, but over the last year, what's probably the biggest thing you've learnt about yourself in this kind of space?
Well, I had to teach myself how to actually do a podcast to start with. It is not as simple as just plugging in a microphone and talking. You have to get all the sound right and get everything set up and then understand how to actually do that properly in different computer programs. Thank God I don't edit. I don't have the patience all the time to edit. I have wonderful Bambi Media who edit my podcast for me. But yeah, you're right. I've really had to get over myself in a way to be able to do this. And if you watch my socials, you would have no idea that I'm like that. I don't want to be famous. If I didn't have a business, I wouldn't have social media profiles. You will never see my kids on social media. Like if you don't know me, you may not know that I have kids. And I even just got a message this morning from my old roommate in the UK that's like, what? You have kids? So yeah, it's been a big learning curve to podcast and do it well because I'm totally a perfectionist. I like to do everything to the best of my ability. And I had no idea how to do it before whatsoever. I had good help from Brianna at Bambi Media to help me actually start it and launch it and how the hell to actually hit record and what programs to use and what microphone to buy and all those sorts of things. And then really it's just been about getting over myself. It's not about me. It's about the people that listen and all the people that I can help. And I need to get out of my own way because I have massive goals and aspirations for the Triathlon Nutrition Academy program. And I need to not be the handbrake in that.
Ooh, I like that. Again, we were speaking before we hit record and I noticed you're actually top 10 in Australia nutrition podcasts.
Yeah, it bounces around a bit. Every week the number's different. But when we launched, we hit top 10 in the nutrition space for Australia, which is massive because that's a huge category.
Do you think that is attributed to the fact that you're not afraid to get out there and say things that not necessarily the general public agree with? And you spoke about this again earlier. There's products, there's shiny things out there that are basically just smoke and mirrors, kind of just bullshit, and you're not afraid to call that out.
Yeah, I think somebody has to do it. Geez, the marketing of supplements is a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? So you just need to understand what you're looking for. And if I can deliver that message because I've looked into a product in an evidence-based way to see is there actually any studies that this thing works or if they extrapolated a study in the way that they want you to read about it, they're going to put that on their website. But my role is to come at everything with a critical mind to go, is this actually useful or beneficial? Is it safe? Is it effective? Because if I can save you money on buying all this shit that you don't need, then maybe you can invest it in your nutrition.
I like that. Full circle. Okay, so 12 months. Have you hit what you wanted to achieve in that 12 months? And then follow-up question, what does the next 12 months look like?
This might sound weird, but I didn't actually have any goals for the podcast. I didn't know how good it could be potentially. And it's been amazing. Like it's connected me with people all around the world that I just didn't think was possible or didn't think that that was the case. So I didn't have any goals around downloads or listenership or anything like that. I'm really flying blind. I've got no idea what I'm doing. I'm a complete hack. But The next 12 months for me is just trying to maybe be a little bit more strategic about what the episodes are about and the journey that I can take triathletes on. Because at the moment, it's just me talking about all the things that I want to tell you. I've got a long list of topic ideas, is over 100, and I've just been randomly picking things that I'm like, oh, I could talk to that today. So the next 12 months, I want to be a little bit more strategic around what that looks like, and getting guests on that will be more strategic around the topics that we're talking about, and then just widening the audience, really. At this point, I think I'm the only triathlon nutrition podcast in the world. I don't know of any other that's run by a sports dietitian. So, watch this space. I'm sure there'll be more in time, but I think I'm the only one at the moment. So I just want to, smash that out of the park and be a bit more planned and strategic, I think. Not in a sales strategy type way, but just to be a bit more strategic around the journey that people need to learn about, and then getting some really high quality guests on. Just starting out, you're a small fish in a big pond. I'd really like to try and grow it so that it's somewhere that people want to come and talk to me as a guest. And if I ask somebody, they're like, yeah, sure, I'd love to do that.
Yeah, for sure. Who's the unicorn? Who's the guest that is at the top of the list?
There's a long list. I'd really like to get some athletes on. I've been working on a few for a while. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that triathletes are pretty disorganized. So, emails and all that sort of stuff's not the best way to communicate with them. But I'd really like to get some athletes on so that you can hear from their perspective about their nutrition journey. They're the kind of people that I want to get on. I haven't been successful yet, but maybe you've got some leverage that you can help me in that space, Stef.
I'll see if I can work some magic.
Yeah.
I think a few people owe me a few favours.
Don't use them up on me.
Okay, I'm very conscious that you love a 30-minute episode, so I'm going to ask you one more question. What is a takeaway that you want people to get from every single episode that you produce?
Great question. I love it. It's the perfect one to finish on. So I guess I want people to understand that nutrition is probably the missing link for them, would be a really good way of summarising what I'm trying to achieve. Triathletes invest a lot of time and effort and money into all the other things. Like, I totally get it. Triathlon's a very expensive sport. You've got to buy all your stuff for swimming. You've got to buy all your stuff for cycling. You've got to buy all your stuff for running. Plus, you probably have a coach or some sort of training program, or you have invested in Training Peaks. There's lots of expenses. Once you've got those basics now, though, then one of the key things you need to look at is nutrition. And people tend to go there last. They like to do everything else first. They might want to lose 10 kilos, but they'll spend 20 grand on a faster bike to make them go faster. But if they just lost 10 kilos in a safe, healthy way, then they would go 20 times faster. So the whole goal of the podcast is to get people to understand that nutrition is the fourth leg of triathlon, and it's something that they need to look at really early rather than an afterthought when they've effed up or had a horrible race, or they're in low energy availability, or they've got a stress fracture, or they're vomiting their guts up in the run. It's only when people have really noisy warning signs or things go badly that they're like, oh, I should probably actually invest some time and finances into my nutrition now.
Absolutely. I've got another question.
Shoot.
The last one was a great question to end on, but we're just not going to end on it because in my experience in the triathlon world, you're speaking to the individual athlete through all these channels, but also speaking to coaches. I imagine there'd be a lot of pushback from coaches when an outsider, i.e. you, is getting involved. Do you find those relationships hard to build on?
Yeah, good question. I think the best coaches I've ever worked with are the ones that know their limitations when it comes to nutrition and outsource what they're not excellent at. They understand nutrition, they know what works for them, and they've seen a lot of athletes making mistakes and know how to direct people. But the best coaches are the ones that are like, okay, go and see Taryn, go and see a sports dietitian because this is not my jam. It's a hard one because there are some really good coaches out there, but yeah, they want to keep their people close and they want to do all the things, but you just can't. Like, you can't be the bike mechanic for someone and their nutritionist and their psych and their massage therapist. You just have to stay in your lane, and that'll make you a better coach if you can do that. But also you'll get better athletes if they're going to other professionals to do all of those things. I have seen coaches do all of those roles, but yeah, I've also seen coaches that are at peace with the limitations of their nutrition knowledge and will happily outsource that. But yeah, it's a hard one. For any athlete, they know what works for them. And the challenge is then, in a very noisy world, being okay with knowing what works for you, and that may not be the best thing for your training buddy or the athlete that you're coaching or your partner or whoever it is that you're trying to give nutrition advice to, because it works for you. That's not necessarily going to be the best thing for someone else.
Absolutely. We need to end this, otherwise I'm just going to keep asking you questions. But I'll come back on in another year and let's do this again.
Yeah, let's do it again. Maybe I'll have some better goals for you.
I don't know. I think you're smashing goals that you didn't know that you had, which is fantastic. I'm impressed with what you're doing and the big steps and leaps that you're taking in order to educate people. It's hard to put yourself out there. It's extremely hard. And I don't think people appreciate how hard it can be. So congrats on an awesome 12 months. Keep doing your thing, folks. If you do not follow Taryn across social media, if you're considering looking into the Triathlon Nutrition Academy, jump on her website, check it out. She's a wealth of information, former AIS, Triathlon Australia, sports dietitian. She's a legend, but more than all that, she's super approachable. So that's what you want. You want to be able to trust somebody, and I give her those ticks of approval, if that means anything to anyone.
Geez, I'll have to pay you for that, Steph. Thanks. Thank you. I'm very no BS, and I think that's one of the things that you'll get by listening to the podcast is that, you know, I love a bit of banter. I tell it straight. I'm not going to beat around the bush, but it also means that the clients that work with me are also okay with that. So, yeah, thank you. Thanks for that.
Thanks so much for asking me to be involved. I'll jump on anytime. Well, maybe not anytime. It was hard enough to lock in a time between two parents and people running their own business. But when we can, we do.
Yeah, it was so fun. Thank you. I honestly couldn't think of anyone better to do this with. So thank you for celebrating the year mark with me, Steph.
Congrats, mate.
Thank you. You.
Hi, it's Bree from New South Wales. I love how Taryn breaks these topics into bite-sized chunks, pun intended, that are easy to digest, also pun intended. I love the way that following her nutrition guidance makes my body feel and how it increases my performances. Thanks, Taryn.
Hi, my name's Penny. I listen in to the podcast from Brisbane. One of the things that I really like about it is obviously the information that we're given is straight up necessary for what we're doing every day in terms of our training, how to get the most out of our training and our racing. One of the things that I've changed since listening to the podcast is I used to eat the same thing every day. It's definitely something that I have changed. The other thing I really like about it is we're obviously very time poor. Listening to the podcast when I'm running on the treadmill or at a time that works for me. I've been a member now since it started, and I will continue to be a member because the information that we get is just so invaluable. So thank you, Taryn, for all the work that you do with us triathletes and giving us all the information and nutritional advice that we need to really get the most out of our training and racing.
Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Triathlon Nutrition Academy podcast. I would love to hear from you. If you have any questions or want to share with me what you've learnt, email me at podcast@dietitianapproved.com. You can also spread the word by leaving me a review and taking a screenshot of you listening to the show. Don't forget to tag me on social media at dietitian.approved so I can give you a shout out too. If you want to learn more about what we do, head to dietitianapproved.com. And if you want to learn more about the Triathlon Nutrition Academy program, head to dietitianapproved.com/academy. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to helping you smash it in the fourth leg. Nutrition!